Spirituality is a journey, not a destination. Yes? Yes. Right. The thing about a journey is, well, you're by definition on the move. And so one's ideal state of spiritual being is a moving target. So how many of you have or regularly do criticize yourself for the spiritual condition you think you're in? Like you're not spiritual enough, or you're not doing it right. Right. And that's just the people telling the truth. The thing is, if it's a moving target, and if we're individualized expressions of the one, of God, of the divine, then it's kind of hard to do it wrong. Except if you get stuck. Because if you're on a journey and you're stuck, that's a problem. One of the things that I have found helpful on my own journey is to have, nobody can tell me what my path is, but there are certain sort of stages, there are several stage models that have been really helpful to me in understanding, I'm moving from this to this to this. And honestly, the reason that I ask y'all that question is because I tend to make myself wrong a lot. Well, if I were just like this, I would be more spiritual. If I could do this, then I'd be more spiritual. If I did this, then, I don't know what I sometimes think is going to happen. I had an old teacher that used to say, turn pink and transcend. If you get it all right, you're going to turn pink and transcend. And so I want to present one of these models to you today. It's a stage model of the evolution of consciousness. So you give me the first slide. This has been known by both of the first two names. So we can call this the kingdoms of creation, the kingdoms of consciousness. And then my informal version is how life is happening. I want to say before I start talking about these things and y'all start trying to self-identify, like diagnose yourselves, right? Which is very human characteristic. We tend to have a center of gravity somewhere, but that doesn't mean our total life is in one stage. So in other words, I might be in stage 2 with my ministry and stage 3 with my relationships. Or stage 1 with my child rearing practices and oh good. See, it says I'm all right. And stage 4 with my meditation practice. Right? So what I'm hoping is that you will sense into your own center of gravity, but please don't let that be a prison. Identifying steps on a journey is not the same as building a prison there and saying, okay, I must be this, and now I've got to get to here. Because that's the other thing about stages, you can't really skip them. You can shorten them, but you can't skip them. A lot of y'all know when I talk about stages, one of the examples I use is Micah. She sat upright before she crawled, and she pulled to stand before she walked. And then she walked before she ran. See, because there's something that happens at each stage that becomes necessary for us to move into the next one. Right? So it's not a race. This is just sort of this is a map, but the map is not the territory. Okay. Awesome. So the kingdoms of consciousness, or the stages, or the kingdoms of creation, there are 4 of them. I want to tell you that no one is quite certain where this work originated. The 2 places that we typically give credit are to Michael Bernard Beckwith and to a couple of ministers, Marcia Sutton and Lloyd Stromp. And I think Michael Beckwith calls it kingdoms of consciousness, and Marcia and Lloyd call it kingdoms of creation. Anyway, just in case you want to look up more information, there's your go-to names. All right, so stage 1 is that life is happening to me. To me. Now, on a lot of our spiritual journeys, especially if we grew up in a Judeo-Christian culture, which most of us did, typically this is the God that is outside of you and in charge of your life, and very hard to understand. This is a stage that's characterized by, well, another word for it, I don't think the clearest word is to say that this stage is often permeated with victim consciousness. So life is happening to me. That guy just hit my car, my boss did this to me, this guy or gal or, child or ex or whatever it is, life is happening to me, and I'm the victim of that, right? This is a stage that we start out in childhood, and sometimes it lasts too long. Is that funny? Yeah. Right. One of the things about this stage is that our spiritual self is really still asleep. Right? So even for those of us who are raised in a traditional Catholic or Protestant or Jewish home, where God is typically outside of us, there comes a point on that journey where we awaken to that. I think it's in Paul. Is it in Paul, y'all, where it says, Christ is born in me or something like that? Right? So there is an acknowledgement that highest most God and the innermost God are one God. But for a long time in Kingdom 1, we don't feel that presence. We just have a big parent that's really moody. Another thing about this stage is we're what I would call unconscious. So basically our fears and our patterns and our old beliefs are dictating the way we engage in the world. And we're not yet conscious, so we're still operating subconsciously. Right? But then something happens, because remember, this is a journey. Right? Something happens. We get sick and tired of being sick and tired. We get sick and tired of being a doormat. Or we have that profound moment of, I would call it cognitive dissonance, where things begin not to fit. I'll use an example. I was in my home AA group. There was a guy by the name of David Duncan. He's telling this story about his grandfather. Some of y'all have heard it. And David said that his grandfather told him, "Son, if you meet an ass in a day, you've met an ass. If you meet 8 asses in a day, you're the ass." What that means is there comes a point when you're in victim consciousness that you realize, oh my God, I'm the common denominator here in every single situation. It's all me, right? And so when that moment happens, or a series of those moments, or a couple years of those moments, whatever it takes what it takes, it's a journey. Then we enter the portal into Kingdom 2. And so the name of the portal from Kingdom 1 to Kingdom 2 is called personal responsibility. We take responsibility. This is this stage 2 is a beautiful place of empowerment. And it is, as a person who does ministry, it's really such a privilege to watch people come into this stage, because they begin to get that they're driving the car, that they are the master of their ship, the captain of their destiny, that kind of thing. And this is the stage in which we really take control of our lives. We start making better decisions. We start speaking our word if we happen to be doing affirmative prayer. We are realizing that, hey, The highest most God and the innermost God might be one God, but I'm not doing my part, and all of a sudden I'm gonna. It's a very, very personally empowering place. And you must go there coming out of stage 1. Because you come out of victim and you come into dominion. The thing about it is, you still have fears, you still have hidden beliefs, but you're just squishing them. And you're still speaking your word and recreating your life. And this is a beautiful experience. But then something kind of happens when you've been here a while. The best way I can think to illustrate this, or when I was thinking about it this morning, is, okay, if stage 1 is victim consciousness, just imagine this. There's a big giant ocean. There's a guy or a gal on a boat. The oars are there, and the person is sitting on the boat rocking in the corner going, I can't do anything, I can't do anything, even though the oars are right there. Right? Coming into stage 2, the person goes, oars, I'm going to do this. And they grab a hold and they start moving the boat. That's stage 2. I am empowered to move in the direction I'm trying to go. But then the person in the boat discovers, despite a lot of success going in the direction that they want to go, that the ocean might have a mind of its own. So I can control whether or not I row, whether or not I'm drinking water, eating granola bars, if you happen to have some in your boat, whatever. There's a lot you can do something about. And yet there's something else that is beyond your control. Does that make sense? Right? Because there's a big ocean. Right? And this can be a challenging, this middle portal right here, it's called surrender. That's called surrender. And what's interesting about that is we can speak our word for something, and it's not demonstrating or manifesting or showing up. And despite all of the work we might do to discover why, it's just not happening. I use Michael and I as an example of this, usually when I talk about it, and that's that we decided we wanted to start a family, and we had everybody doing spiritual mind treatment, affirmative prayer for us, and despite several years of trying, Michael never had a viable pregnancy. Right? And a person is confronted at that moment with, okay, so what's the deal? And we typically go through a very bruising process to our ego, which is, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? What are we doing wrong? And you can do that. And some people just get off the journey at that point. None of this stuff works, doesn't matter, I'm just on the bar, whatever, football game, something. Or you do that thing again where you begin to question. And so what I did is I began to question, and it's like, but I feel the power and presence. And I know I'm in alignment, and there must be something more. Right? And that is the point at which, and I'm going to give in to that, or I'm going to work with that. That's the point at which we surrender, and part of what we have to give up is the idea of control and certainty. This idea of mystery is reintroduced. There must be some things I don't or can't yet understand, or may never understand. The other things that we are surrendering is our sense of separation. Right? Because we have spent a lot of time in Kingdom 2 building a very sturdy ego, effective, a healthy ego. And yet that sense of separateness has to be given up for us to progress into stage 3. Stage 3 is when life is happening through me. So let's go back to the guy or the gal, the person in the boat. Okay. Now the person in the boat has discovered there's a sail, right? So they brought the sail up. And they are now cooperating with the wind and the currents, doing their part, and yet acknowledging that there's wind and current and doldrums and everything else. Life happening through me is the beginning of the experience of, in traditional Christianity we would call it grace, the feeling that we're being carried along. Y'all have that feeling? You know what that feels like? And so I would characterize stage 3 as that place where the highest most God and the innermost God are one God, and I feel as though I'm dancing with that God. I'm in this give and take, ebb and flow, this beautiful motion. One of the great things about the stages, our relationships start to work, because we're not trying to control everybody anymore, which is very helpful in building healthy relationships. Or so it's been reported. We get a sense of internal harmony, right? Or flow is another word for that. Things just begin to work better. I did a talk last week on conflict, and I had 3 or 4 people approach me about, well, I don't have conflict with other people, and I wanted to go, or not talking about it yet, but they were very aware that they felt like they were in a tug of war with themselves. It was back and forth. It was back and forth. And that's a pretty good indication to me that middle portal, that it's time to move through that, to slide through that. So in Kingdoms 1 and 2, we have a self, and the self is with a small s. It's a human self. Does that make sense? Human self? Once we slide over into 3 and 4, we are beginning to experience a lack of separation, a unitive, maybe some peaks at what it feels like to be truly unified or in oneness. And the self is now capitalized. It's the big self, because it's the highest most and the innermost one God. I'm sort of hesitant to talk about Kingdom 4 because I have a lot of questions about it myself, but I do have a way that I want to at least briefly mention it. So if Kingdom 3 is categorized by self-transcendence, meaning the healthy self that we've built in 2 now has to be, we have to move beyond that and bring the healthy parts with us, then from 3 to 4, which is as me, life is happening, creation is happening, consciousness is me. The best way I know how to talk about this is, now we don't have a guy or a person on a boat with a sail. Now we have an experienced sailor in a regatta. Have you ever seen someone sail who is so, or do anything that is so at one with their craft that it's just poetry in motion? It's like there is no division between the boat and the man sailing it or woman sailing it. There's the singer and the song are one. Do you know what I'm talking about? There's that sense that now it's not a dance because there's no one there to dance with. I am the dancer and the song. And the dance. I am the singer and the song and the audience. Wow. In Kingdoms 1 and 2, the principle of growth is courage. I'm going to pick myself up, breathe into this, and do it. The principle of growth in 3 and 4 is love. And those 2 things have very different feels. And I'll tell you that for myself, I make use of both almost every day. So again, this is a journey, there's no right or wrong. But there is, can you feel, when you think about having courage, do you feel the sort of, there's like an energy to it that is, you gotta like, go. Love, which we define as, is more of an impulsion. There's a fluidity to being compelled by love. Here's the thing about this. Will you flip to the next slide? This is a very important point to remember. And again, remember, I'm talking about this at all because we're on a journey. And we all need to know that we're okay. You're probably not the freak you think you are. Or not the spiritual deviant you think you are. Or you're not doing it wrong as much as you think you are. Right? There are a couple of things, though, that to look out for, and this is the one I want to talk about today. There's something called spiritual bypass. The term itself came out of Buddhism. But spiritual bypass is when we try to skip a stage. Or we present, or we tell ourselves that we're in a stage that we're really not in. So let me show you what this might look like. So in Kingdom 1, which is victim consciousness, life is happening to me, right? The power is outside of us. In Kingdom 3, the power is coming through us. But I've seen a lot of people say, oh, I'm co-creating with Spirit. And then when something happens, when something goes wrong, Good is very spiritual. That thing you just did, it scared me. What happens is, we actually haven't done the work to build a sturdy self. So we're over here pretending like we're doing this beautiful dance, but we're not there to dance. Because we haven't developed the self that can stand up. So through me is what some folks say, or can be said in this instance of bypass, but to me is the kingdom. All right, so that's one way. The second bypass that we see a lot is this one from 2 to 4. So if Kingdom 2 is about developing a healthy ego, it's a healthy sense of self that acknowledges the power and presence of the divine in, as, and through us. I mean, like we are a child of the universe. We are the way that God is showing up, right? And it's about the development of a healthy self, a developed ego self, one that functions and that takes personal responsibility. But Kingdom 4 is that place where the dance and the dancer are one. And so there is, again, I'm trying to describe something that has a texture to it, and I don't exactly have the words. So let's go to somebody having a zone experience or a peak experience where they're in that place where the story is writing itself, or the song is singing itself, or the dance is dancing itself, the drum is drumming itself. One of the things, the development of the healthy ego in Kingdom 2, one of the things that happens is sometimes it gets a little overdeveloped. Like, it's all me. It's all me. And it's so all me that I'm in Kingdom 4. But what happens is we haven't incorporated the surrender piece, where we realize, where we've done the work to get right-sized, because right, the highest, most, and the innermost God, there is no highest, most God. It's all me, baby. So now, instead of just a healthy ego in 2, I've got a giant, massive, self-deceived ego in 4. I know you all haven't done that, but I guess you've met people like that, because there's a lot of There's a lot of amens going out here. Right? And I want to say this about this, the idea of a spiritual bypass. You can darken it, Sarah. We've all done it. I've done it. The thing about it is if you think you're in one place and you think you're moving along and somebody just like you feel the horse come out from underneath you frequently, then you might have missed the step. You might have missed a stage that would allow you to be more stable where you are. Experience the presence of God more fully where you are. Be the heart and hands and words of God to yourself and to other people where you are. There is a whole body of work behind this, and I think it's in October I'm going to be doing a couple of deep dive workshops around the kingdoms of creation and personal finance. And the thing about it is with these kingdoms of consciousness or creation, you can be, once again, in any area, you can be anywhere, right? And what they present the opportunity to do is to look unflinchingly at where we are and realize that it's really okay. And for those of us that are absolutely certain that we're really fabulously okay and never doubt ourselves, there's at least like, I don't know, somewhere, somebody's like that, it can provide the doubt. Because some of us require building up, right? Because we doubt ourselves plenty. Others of us don't doubt ourselves enough, and we need well, they say the role of a minister is to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comforted. Right? And so, for those 11 or 12 people somewhere in the world who need to be disturbed because they're overly comfortable with where they are, this provides an opportunity for that. I want to go back to where I started, and that's just in order to finish up, and that's to remind us all that the journey is not a race, and that at no place in any of those kingdoms does it say that you're more spiritual than somewhere else. You are more in touch with your spiritual nature, but you've always been a precious child of God. You've always been an incarnation of the one true Spirit. There are just places where you remember it more. But fundamentally, you can't be any more spiritual or any more divine than you are at this moment. No matter if you feel powerless, powerful, whether you're dancing or you're in the zone, where you are is enough. I love the freedom to pray to God. I love the freedom to pray from God. I love the freedom to pray as God. And I love the humility that shows me exactly what that means. I'm remembering in this moment that there is one life that is the life of God. That life is everywhere present. That life is the center and substance of every single person, every single situation, no matter what it appears. That life is my life right now. And in this moment, where I am is well with my soul. Say that to yourself, just silently. It is well with my soul. God cannot be any more with you or through you or as you than God is right now. So today, remembering that we are not alone. We can never be alone. And that everywhere that we are is holy and sacred ground. Every place on the journey that we are is its own mountaintop. Let's leave here today and treat each other and treat ourselves as though we are enough and more than enough. And let us all remember that ultimately, as Ram Dass says, we are all just walking each other home. So let's walk lightly, compassionately,